themselves off and take on the Panthers this week. Cincinnati 0-3 on the season. They lost 38-33 Monday at home against the Commanders. Joe Burrow, 29 of 38 passing. He had 324 yards and 3 touchdowns. What needs to change? Burrow said,
the common denominator from the first 3 weeks, we've had opportunities and didn't cash in on those. So whatever we got to do to get better this week and get better in the spots that we need to is what we're going to do.
The 3-0 Steelers visit the 1-2 Colts this Sunday. Quarterback Russell Wilson remains limited. Head coach Mike Tomlin still won't say Justin Fields is the starter.
When Russ gets to an appropriate point of health and we have a decision to make, I'll make it and I'll announce it and I'll be really transparent about it.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation and a regular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduce stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. It may increase your stroke risk. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. Medications such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
No way football is played in the fall and winter
because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the two best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, listen, I don't know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, SiriusXM Channel 159.
Oh yeah, the best hour of your day now officially underway. It's Moneyline on a Hump Day Wednesday. I'm your host, Donnie Rightside, on a solo mission. Thank you for tuning in. SiriusXM Channel 159, SportsGrid Network. How you watching this? Or how you listening, I should say, too. SportsGridRadio.com. Bang, get involved here. The SportsGrid app, one of the best in the business. SportsGrid.com. I mean, any different way you want to watch it, which now includes SportsGrid on demand on our YouTube channel here. More people every day subscribing. It's a fun way to watch the show, number one, but also be involved in the show and have that chat box lighting up as it is today. So let's get after it. Let's get underway. Let's talk about some of these hot topics. And I didn't expect to have this as a hot topic today, but sometimes we get some of those gems for college football. Now, granted, we just talked about on the early line, Joe Lisi and Donnie Rightside, this weekend's action in college football, which starts on Friday night. Those Miami Hurricanes, should I say, my Miami Hurricanes, taking on Virginia Tech, is about a 3-touchdown or so favorite. And that's going to be a big game for Miami. To say it's a national audience. Let's see if we can prove once again that we're a top 10 football team. But then on Saturday afternoon, guys, right? The SEC, man. Oh, it's so good. It's so good this weekend. It's Georgia. It's Alabama. It's Tuscaloosa. It's Carson Beck. It's going up against Jalen Milroe. We're going to enjoy that and have fun. But that's not the college topics that I wanted to bring to you today to start off this show on Moneyline. It's a quarterback that feels like he was wronged on his NIL. And if you haven't heard yet or saw the tweets or heard any of the updates yet, quarterback Matthew Sluka to exit UNLV because his representations were not upheld. So let's just dial this back of how we got to this point. You know my stance on things. Look, I was a Division III football player. I obviously wasn't good enough to play Division I football. I know what it's like to pay my way through school, and hopefully we get a box lunch on the weekend when we go on road games and 6-7 hours on a bus. I understand the dregs of college football and what that is. And I'm not making a point to say I should have been paid as a Division III athlete. No. But you're playing more for the love of the football game while you're going to school, knowing that you're never going to turn pro, and you're going to turn pro in something other than life. You know, those enterprise commercials that they tell you about college football players. But over the past couple of years, the changing of the tide in college football. And I didn't warn against it. I didn't want to see it happening, but it is let the floodgates open. College football players being paid through the NIL, name, image, and likeness. As we thought it was going to happen here, it wasn't schools paying the kids. It was you can use your name, image, and your likeness to make money. So if I am a business, forget about a booster. I'm just talking about the way they probably thought NIL will come to fruition. For me, I'm the starting quarterback of the Miami Hurricanes. There's a local bar in town named Skeeter's or Tom's or Dave's Bar. And they go, you know what? Can we put posters up around our bar with you saying, come get a bite to eat at Tom's Bar. It's a great place to eat. We'll give you $5,000 for that, put some money in your pocket, and away you go. Now, some of the superstar players who would have a national following, where if you put their face on TV, they would be recognizable, and they would be able to make whatever product you are selling better. So let's just say Quinn Ewers, who, again, 95% of the people understand and know who Quinn Ewers is, but if you take his helmet off and put him in a jersey, 30% of the same college football fans will be like, unless he said his name, would have no idea who that is. You see him on Dr. Pepper commercials. He's earning money. You also saw DJ Uiagalelei on those commercials previously. National brand, national product, make some money and get paid for it. Name, image, and likeness. That has now turned into, we're not going to use your name. We're not going to use your image. We're not going to use your likeness. We're just going to pay you to come play football at our university, and the boosters are going to handle it. That's where it's all getting sort of foggy, to say the least. Because the thought process behind it was, kids need a way to earn some money. Okay, you're going to go down to the local Chevy dealership on a Sunday, the day after you upset Auburn in college football. You're going to sign autographs. You're going to pay you $2,000. Like, man, that was awesome. This is a great way to do it. That's name, image, and likeness used to your ability. Now it's just show up on our campus. I have $1 million for you, which then ups the ante, because we're getting dangerously close now to players pulling stunts like we're seeing now from quarterback Matthew Sluka of UNLV, a team that is undefeated, playing very good football. And he goes, you know what, team? I'm out. I was promised X amount of dollars. I haven't been getting that X amount of dollars. I'm now going to leave this university and enter into the transfer portal again, which is his ability to do, right? That is his right to do that based on NIL, because now that you can transfer anywhere you want. But the question comes into it. You've had representation, which I assume he did. The deals that were brokered are supposed to be upheld. You're telling me you went to UNLV based on a handshake deal that some booster you don't know was going to deliver you like $100,000 by September 21st, and it didn't happen? What are we actually doing here? Like, where are the contracts out here being upheld to? It's just like, hey, an NFL player, you get $60 million in guaranteed money. As long as you aren't arrested, you're going to get that $60 million. But you play 4 games into the season, and you were supposed to get your signing bonus and never got it, and you say, I'm not playing anymore. That doesn't happen. Why? Because there's contracts that have to be upheld here. NIL is supposed to have contracts, and apparently that contract broke down. But here's what I want to talk about on this point here. Who cares about UNLV football, to be honest? Nobody cares about it. But it's just interesting that this guy now says, I love my teammates. We're 3-0. We can do big things this year, which maybe even be the highest-rated group of 5 team to make it into the college football playoff. But I didn't get mine, so I'm out, and I'm going to hit the transfer portal, which is so crazy. But again, it's his right to do that. But let's hear out different responses of what could happen here. Let's go to that Friday night football game in Miami where they take on Virginia Tech. Let's go to that Alabama versus Georgia game. Let's just say I'm Jalen Milroe of Alabama. I'm Carson Beck of Georgia. The night before the game, I make a phone call, and I say to my head coach, and maybe, I don't know, you can call the head booster. Who knows what you can do anymore. I'm not playing unless I get $1 million wired into my account before game time tomorrow. I'll sit this game out. What's to stop an entire football team with an NIL collective by saying, we are not going to take the field tomorrow against Ohio State unless we're all wired $50,000 apiece into our account, or we're not going to play? Are we going down a slippery slope at this point? Because again, Matthew Sluka, team-wise, right? I would hate that guy for life. Same thing if I was USC back in the day. I would never talk to Reggie Bush again. We'll get to his argument in just a few moments. But leaving your teammates based on a sham broker deal that you thought you were going to get more money and now going into the transfer portal. Here's also the issue. You can leave at any time you want now in college football. You don't have to sit out any seasons. And quite frankly, it's going to start to turn into where I can leave in week number 3 and play for another team in week number 4. Like, we're going to probably get down there as long as all these ridiculous lawsuits go in. But the simple fact of the matter is there are people out there that couldn't wait to pay these football players in college football. And now it's coming home to roost at this point because it could turn into the Wild West times 10. And I'm here for it because you might as well just get to professional football. The kids shouldn't go to school. And they're even floating around the topic of there is no eligibility requirements in college football, which means if you want to stay in college for 11 years and get your doctorate, you can play football as an 18-year-old all the way up to a 33-year-old if you wanted to do that. Nonsense at this point. There was a sanctity of college football. But again, when the NIL came in, I understood it was there for. Put a couple extra dollars in these players' pockets here for their name, image, and likeness. And nobody, like Matthew Sluka, where's his name, image, and likeness? Is he on national commercials? Is he with Finlay Toyota out there in Vegas? Is he has a poster up on the wall at the Mirage who's now being knocked down? Like, hey, before this place gets knocked down, let me tell you about Matthew Sluka. Does he have a spot at Caesars? Are there chips with Matthew Sluka's face at Caesars that are paying him money in order to use his name, image, and likeness? It's all a sham. It's just a slippery slope that's only going to get even more slippery day to day at this point. Chat box is popping. Moneyline is underway. It's the best hour of your day. It's Donnie Wrights out on a solo mission. Hot topics left and right. Make sure you stay tuned after the commercial. We've only just begun.
Fall is here.
It's getting cooler.
Football and the World Series are coming in.
Life is good. SportsGrid makes it better.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The son of Ryan Routh, the man accused of a second assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, has been taken into custody on federal charges of possessing child pornography. Investigators say they discovered hundreds of files with child pornography during a search of Orrin Routh's residence in Guilford County, North Carolina, Saturday, conducted in connection with an investigation unrelated to child exploitation. The 2 charges he faces include receipt of child pornography and possession of child pornography. Outgoing West Virginia Independent Senator Joe Manchin said Tuesday he will not back Vice President Kamala Harris's White House bid after she came out in favor of changing Senate rules to pass abortion protection laws. Manchin, who is retiring and left the Democratic Party earlier this year, said, quote, "Shame on her. She knows the filibuster is the holy grail of democracy. It's the only thing that keeps us talking and working together." Outgoing Senator Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, another retiring Democrat turned independent and filibuster defender, also panned the idea. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored
Days
by
are
Pfizer.
getting cooler and shadows are getting longer. You know what that means?
It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
It is smarter to be on the SportsGrid Network. Donnie Wrights side Moneyline Wednesday, hump day, setting the table, and the NFL starts right back up tomorrow night, guys. And actually a game that's much better than we probably would have anticipated come August. The Dallas Cowboys with their season on the line, taking on the New York Giants, who won a game last week against the Cleveland Browns. That line sits about 5.5 total in the mid-40s. We'll get to those breakdowns and much, much more tomorrow. But there are some other topics here. Before we do talk some Major League Baseball, down the stretch they come. Sunday's the last game here. Interesting doings across the board. Yesterday went 2-0 on side plays yesterday. How about that? Had the Cubs at a minus 130 price. And had the Atlanta Braves at a minus 138 price yesterday, switching it up a little bit. By the way, if I would have taken RBI props last night, truth be told, I would have lost. So glad I didn't play RBI props. There were a couple people DM me, hey, you're going to get involved in, what do you got tonight? I stayed away from those, but I did go 2-0 on sides, which, again, I'm not really a huge side guy. So it's not, hey, Donnie's picking sides, put them out there. If I have something that's worthwhile for RBI props, certainly we'll get to that. But before we get to Major League Baseball and update you on who's in, who's out, who's jockeying for position, let's jockey for this position, starting quarterback in the NFL. We're going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, something I've been just completely immersed in since the time the Pittsburgh Steelers acquired both Justin Fields and also Russell Wilson. From day number one, Mike Tomlin told you there is no quarterback controversy. There's a starter. There is a backup. Russell Wilson is my starter. Justin Fields is the backup. And nothing is going to change that outside of like a bad injury, which technically I guess we did get with Russell Wilson. Wasn't able to start the season because of a calf injury. So Justin Fields played. Justin Fields won game number one. Russell Wilson wasn't healthy enough to play in Atlanta week number one. He wasn't healthy enough to play in week number two against the Denver Broncos. Another victory for Justin Fields on the road, moving them to 2-0. Russell Wilson still wasn't quite healthy enough to play in week number three, which the Pittsburgh Steelers were at home and took on the Los Angeles Chargers. 3-0, Pittsburgh moves to with Justin Fields. So Albert Breer had a tweet yesterday that said, Steelers coach Mike Tomlin asked why he isn't naming Justin Fields a starter right now. Quote, because there's no need. I explained to you the variables of the week. When Russ gets to an appropriate level of health and I have a decision to make, I will make it. And Albert Breer posted at the bottom of that tweet, door left wide open. Now, I understand here. You do want to keep Russell Wilson in the mix. And you probably thought as a head coach, he was your best quarterback heading into the season and gave you the best chance at victory. Well, through 3 games, Justin Fields hasn't lost. And by the time that you might want to swing it over to Russell Wilson, maybe Justin Fields is playing extremely well and you can't bench Justin Fields. Because take a look at the remaining schedule here, at least over the next couple weeks for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They go on the road to take on the Colts. Colts aren't having a very good start to their season. That's another winnable game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you're going to have the Dallas Cowboys at home, and based on what's going to happen, now Dallas will come in no matter what with a little bit of a rest advantage since they're playing on Thursday Night Football. But it's still a road game for the Cowboys and a home game for the Steelers. Let's just say they'll be favored in that game as well, and they pick up the victory. Then they go on the road to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. That should be another win. So you might be looking at, and I understand, you can't look a gift horse in the mouth and say, well, Donnie, the 3-0, that means they should be favored the next 3 weeks or be close to it. They should win the next 3 games. We understand how any given Sunday actually works and upsets do happen. But let's just say for food for thought, you're 6-0 with the Pittsburgh Steelers with Justin Fields. How do you go back? Because and it's not going to be a decision that they're going to make in 3 weeks, right? Because that's not the point of the conversation. The conversation is if we say again that Russell Wilson isn't healthy enough to play this weekend against the Colts and Justin Fields takes the field on the road and wins his 3rd road game of the season out of the first 4 games, then you're going to tell me you're going back on a Sunday Night Football game against the Cowboys and popping Russell Wilson in there? I understand what Mike Tomlin is doing now because you can't just set yourself back and really just like dig that grave and say, I'm going to stay into it, whether it's right or wrong at this point. Going back a long time, this might have been 2010 in Philadelphia. And it was Mike Vick was coming into his 2nd year with the Philadelphia Eagles, but Kevin Kolb was still the starter. Kevin Kolb got knocked out in game number 1 after the Eagles gave him a decent little contract extension as he was supposed to be the starter. Vick looked like he was back to his Atlanta, Falcons days where he was a race car out there on the football field. Post-game press conference, Andy Reid said, no, Kevin Kolb is my starter. Mike Vick has no chance basically to be the starter. The very next day, Andy Reid came out and goes, Kevin Kolb is going to get benched and Mike Vick is my starter. Thank you, Kevin Kolb, for your contribution of basically a quarter of football, but it's going to be Mike Vick all the way through. I wonder if we get that from the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin because he is playing it just a little bit too narrow. Like, it's very easy to say, and I think everybody would understand this. And quite frankly, you're dealing with the locker room as well. And on the early line, I said, I don't think there's ever been a time that we have watched Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers lose that locker room. That's never been the case. He's always had the ear to the ground in that locker room. But I got to tell you right now, Fields is playing extremely well. And unless you play Fields this weekend and they lose to the Colts, it could be the perfect time to go back to Russell Wilson. But if you're telling me Justin Fields wins again and once again telling you that he's won 3 road games out of 4 games to start the season, and you're just going back to Russ because he's healthy. You can't do that. And also, Mike Tomlin, you can come out and say, look, Russ isn't healthy enough to play. Justin Fields is my starter. Like, he's not even saying that now. Like, until we get health clearance on Russ, yes, Fields is my starter. He doesn't even want to give you that, which I do think is comical at this point because it's an easy decision for me. Justin Fields is going to be my starting quarterback until he loses. And quite frankly, if they play the Colts this weekend as 21-20 and he plays good football again, but they lost by a point, you still got to ride out Justin Fields. You might have lightning in a bottle with Justin Fields where we're just tapping the surface of what he can actually be as a quarterback. Because all you ask for with his type of game is, give me a really good defense. I'll make enough plays and take care of the football where we can win games. They trusted enough this past weekend against the Chargers to throw the football 30-plus times in a close game, and he rewarded them with a victory. Is their offense lighting it on fire is the argument that Mike Tomlin can make back. 18 points against the Falcons, which they didn't even score a touchdown, 13 points against the Broncos, and 20 points against the Chargers. He's not lighting it up. It's like, you know what, we're winning 40-6 every game, and I understand that. But there is something about just hanging around in football games and giving your team a chance to win those games. Chat box out there, I see you. JP, the producer's in there. Jordan P's out there. Mammoth is out there. Joe Friezo, a producer, is out there. The boys are popping. The best hour of your day is underway. More Hot Topics next, right here on Moneyline.
Don't look like an idiot at work. Know your stuff. Football and everything else. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1965, Satchel Paige, at the age of 60, throws 3 scoreless innings for the Kansas City A's. In 1979, the California Angels win their first AL West title. And in 1962, challengers Sonny Liston KOs Floyd Patterson in round 1 at Comiskey Park.
Sonny Liston knocks out Floyd Patterson in 1 round to become the 21st heavyweight champion of the world.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Purdue University physicists have opened the world's first quantum disco with the world's tiniest disco ball. And by tiny, I mean a disco ball 1/100th the width of a human hair, made of glowing fluorescent nanodiamonds levitating inside a pure vacuum, spinning 1.2 billion times per minute. The point? Not to improve your platform shoe disco finger, but to simulate what happens to qubits inside a quantum computer. Computing power that could be 150 billion times faster than yesterday's supercomputer. And that's a lot cooler than John Travolta doing the funky chicken. Follow me at Chicapalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The early line.
I thought they would look better on offense, but now that you're like, okay, Worthy doesn't look like he's going to be a participant, and Travis Kelce, he's not even a part-time player on this offense. If Carson Steele in the backfield is the running back, Rashee Rice is your only viable threat, and here they are 3-0, and I just laugh and go, that's just because of Patrick Mahomes. It's just what he does. It doesn't matter the opponent, they will find a way to win.
It's the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Fall is almost here. It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Getting after it here, having some fun on a Wednesday hump day. Major League Baseball, guys. Ooh, we got an interesting finish down the stretch. We do. You guys aren't paying attention to it. I understand. A lot of people lose focus in Major League Baseball in the month of September. But once we get to October, everybody gets excited for playoff baseball once again. But a lot still to be decided. Now, yesterday, looking at some of these scores, the Tigers 2-1 over the Rays. What a massive win for the Tigers, playing the best baseball, maybe in Major League Baseball over the past 30 days, which is incredible just to say the least. Tarik Skubal, his 18th win of the season. He's now 18-4 with an ERA of 2.39. He is your AL Cy Young Award winner. Absolutely phenomenal performance in a game they absolutely had to win, and they did. 6 total hits combined between the two teams yesterday, and the Tigers were able to pick up that victory. We'll hit the standings in just a second. One of the games I did like yesterday, coming in as a favorite, were the Chicago Cubs over the Philadelphia Phillies. Banks was on the mound, average pitcher. You take a look at the pitching situation here for the Cubs yesterday. Steele, I thought it was a much better situation. They improved to 10-4 on the season. Talking about the Chicago Cubs. And by the way, let me just check something in this box score. Let me see some of the hitting arrangements here. Because Steele went 4 innings and 2 earned runs, which again wasn't enough to get him the victory. Didn't go long enough there. Smiley actually picked up the victory in that game, but with his 1 inning to get through the 5th. But from a Phillies perspective, Schwarber, 1 for 4 in that game. Harper, 2 for 4 with a home run, which is good to see for the Phillies. Bohm, 0 for 4. Castellanos, 1 for 3. But I thought that was an easy win for the Cubs. And the fact that they were the favorites, they deserved to be the favorites in that game. The Phillies clinching, a little bit hungover for the day. Even though the Phillies are trying to chase down the Los Angeles Dodgers, I took the Cubs as a favorite in that game and won. Guardians playing better baseball down the stretch, picked up their 91st win of the season as they took down the Reds 6-1. The Brewers, who have already clinched their playoff spot, maybe a really, really outside chance of catching the Phillies or the Dodgers for one of those top 2 seeds in the NL. But the Royals yesterday, a 1-0 victory. Great pitching performances out of both pitchers in that game. But the Royals able to hold on to win, and if the season ended today, would be making a playoff appearance. So they sort of fought off those demons over the past 3 to 4 weeks, win a couple games here, stay up. The Yankees and the Orioles, 5-3 victory yesterday for the Baltimore Orioles. Kramer was very good on the mound, but the question marks come up now for the Yankees, who had to keep their champagne on ice, while the Baltimore Orioles popped their champagne yesterday by clinching a playoff spot in the wild card race. Now, granted, the Yankees haven't clinched yet, so theoretically the Orioles can still win this division, but that would mean the Yankees would have to lose all the way out, and the Orioles have to win all the way out. But here's the interesting part today about this game. Supposed to be on the mound was Nestor Cortez for the Yankees, but he now has an MRI scheduled for his left elbow, which obviously takes him out of the starting lineup tonight, and questions now arise, would he be available for the postseason run? And we didn't think he's going to be in like the top 3, maybe top 4 pitchers for the Yankees, so how much of a loss that is, not really sure. But you could have put his expertise, or should I say more than expertise, just his veteran leadership in the postseason. Need an inning or 2, he can probably give you that. Now it looks like he might not be giving you anything. But a chance today for the Orioles to go out there and sort of press the Yankees again. Zach Eflin's on the mound, hasn't been a bad pitcher over the past 60 days. So this clinching day just got a little bit harder for the New York Yankees. The Braves and the Mets yesterday. That was the second side I took. It was with the Atlanta Braves, who picked up that 5-1 victory over the New York Mets. Spencer Schwellenbach has been very good this season for the Atlanta Braves. He gets his ERA lowered to 3.47 in a big spot, playoff spot, basically, for the Braves. And how injured they are, it seemingly hasn't mattered. It's a great front office. Guys continue to step up to the plate and deliver. And the Braves, no surprise to me yesterday, that minus 130-ish price as a favorite. I was willing to lay that. And also tonight, Chris Sale goes on the mound going up against the New York Mets to look to overtake them, which is kind of wild at this point, where now the Mets were playing so good, but it's just sometimes when you play teams, that'll be interesting to see if the Braves can pick up another victory today and handle their business. Keep moving forward here on the docket. Maybe one of the most disappointing games of the night would have been the Minnesota Twins, who just a few short weeks ago, they were just penciling themselves into that playoff run where they thought they could be the wild card, maybe even have a chance to take down the Cleveland Guardians. That is up in smoke, and they have such an easy schedule. Like the final 6 games for the Minnesota Twins, they got 3 against the Marlins, which they already lost 1 of those. They got to win the next 2. And then the Twins end the season, let me just see again with their full schedule, because I know it was pretty, with the Baltimore Orioles, which you would usually say, that's a terrible team to have. Now, we anticipate that by that time, the Baltimore Orioles will probably have everything locked up. Wild card, out of the race to probably win an AL East, which, Yankees just got to win 1 game to wrap that up. That could change some. So theoretically, you should have been able to win 6 or 7 straight games, not lose like 6 out of 7 games coming into the series. Brutal stuff for the Minnesota Twins. Many more hot topics on the way as Moneyline is rolling into the morning here. On a right side full mission. I'll be right back.
Time to coil up that garden hose
Fall is here. And SportsGrid has you covered with strategies and info on football, baseball, and everything else. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Right by Marcel. That's way back and gone. Home run, Ozuna.
The call on Braves Radio, 5-1 the win over the Mets last night. Atlanta remains in the wild card hunt. They're still on the bubble, but sit one game behind the Diamondbacks and the Mets, who are tied at 87 and 70. San Diego's the National League wild card leader. AP Top 25 football this week, no change among the top four. Texas remains number 1 at 4-0 with 3-0 Georgia at number 2. The Ohio State Buckeyes are 3-0 and remain number 3, while the Alabama Crimson Tide are 3-0 and are number 4. Tennessee up 1 spot this week to number 5. The Volunteers are 4-0. Ole Miss dipped a spot to number 6. They're 4-0. 4-0 Miami up a spot to number 7. 3-0 Oregon up 1 spot to number 8.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
The holidays are coming, and Lowe's is here to help you get ready. Right now, get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, save an additional $75 on select cooking appliances, $899 or more. And get even more of an interior refresh with up to 40% off select vanities and free delivery. Because Lowe's knows holiday hosting. Valid through 10/16 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for details.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, you know to check you have a full tank of gas first before road tripping through the desert.
Empty? Seriously? Maybe I can walk.
Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
Maybe I can't.
You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Right before your very eyes.
The boys of summer are about to become the champions of fall.
MLB playoffs are coming.
And SportsGrid will bring you all the angles, strategies, and info.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Still keeping it with Major League Baseball. We'll flip it over to NFL and get that preview of this weekend's action with a lot more hot topics on who should win, who should lose, who's dead and buried. Cincinnati Bengals, can they overcome an 0-3 start and make the playoffs? Not very many teams do that here, but let's focus on baseball tonight. I picked out, 3, 6, 7 total games with that playoff implications tonight, with just some simple thoughts. And again, just because a team has to win doesn't mean they will. Twins had to win last night against the Miami Marlins. They got beat 4-1 in that spot. You figure Washington Nationals are dead and buried. They fought the Kansas City Royals all the way into 10 innings in a 1-0 defeat here. So teams are still going to rise up. And the one thing we know about Major League Baseball, you're getting paid on statistics. Pitchers that go out on the mound aren't just giving up bombs left and right to get the season over. And players stepping up to the plate aren't striking out on purpose because they don't feel like playing anymore. You are paid based on your statistics. You're a professional athlete. You're expected to perform at the highest level you can. Now, some teams aren't as good as others. I get that. But the performance is going to be there. Nobody's going to give up on the season knowing that it could harm their next contract or, quite frankly, just being on that franchise the next season. I told you last night, I like the Chicago Cubs. I took the Chicago Cubs. They beat my Philadelphia Phillies. It's tough. Sometimes you got to fade your own teams in order to make some money. That happened last night. I don't think that's going to be the case today. Christopher Sanchez will be on the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies. And looking at that price point, which opened up at a -172 number towards the Phillies, now sits at -188, close to 2-1s at most outlets here. Christopher Sanchez on my card at a 26 pitchers over the past 60 days. It's number 3 on the card today. 68 innings over the past 60 days, an ERA of 3.71, but more importantly, an xFIP number of 3.15. Assad takes them out as my 19th favorite pitcher on the card today out of 26. His ERA, not bad, 3.67, but an elevated xFIP number of 4.62. The Phillies will be able to handle their business tonight and stay in that race with the Dodgers for that number 1 overall seed. Here's an interesting game. 965, 966 on the rotation, 640 start tonight. It's Tampa Bay and it's Detroit. Zach Littell will be on the mound for the Rays, and then you see Kiter Montero on the mound for Detroit. Not a big fan of Montero in this spot. They are favored in this game at a -124. Tampa Bay theoretically has not been eliminated from the playoffs, but every single team in front of them would have to lose and they have to win. It's not happening, not making the playoffs, but still the belief is there. I do think Detroit wins this game, but I'm not betting that side, though. You know what I'm going to bet? A team total for Tampa Bay going up against Detroit. Montero hasn't been anything, special over the past 60 days. An ERA of 4.28, an xFIP number of above 4. But the first 5 to 6 batters in that lineup today for the Tampa Bay Rays, I think they show well. I really do think they show well at this point here. So we'll get back. We'll get with that and say, you know what? Detroit probably wins. Tampa Bay should be able to get that run line. Taking a look here from the boys in the chat box, Mammoth say DK boost with Harper, 2+ total bases at 105 to plus 150. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's what we're going to enjoy tonight. That's the stuff I want to get down with. Now, I do have my DK account up right now. Let me just see where I can quickly find this. Because, by the way, DK started hitting. I've been getting my numbers increased at FanDuel back to, $100 boost bets, which I love. I'll always be in the mix. Thank you for that. It went from 5 to 10 to 50 to 100, so I appreciate that. So now I'm logged into my DK account as I scroll through. Early win, 100% boost on the Yanks. No sweat here. Let me see here. So if I click on baseball, will that pop up? I wonder. Your team wins by 2 runs. Boost. I don't see that on my docket here. So Harper, 2 bases, minus 105 to plus 150. I would like to get down with that tonight. But let me just click on the Phillies game to see if it's there. I don't know. Maybe it's just a special different things, because sometimes I get stuff that other people don't get, and they get stuff that I can't get, but I don't see that on my boost screen here. So I'll keep trying to find that, see if it comes through. But I would like to participate in that one. I really would. We'll see if it pops up for me. If not, no big deal. Baltimore, New York. Oh, looks like Stroman has been inserted here as the starting pitcher now. Left-hander, so it doesn't. Am I getting this confused here? Let me see what we got here. Marcus Stroman. I could be wrong. I think this might lefty. Yeah, he's not a lefty. Pops up on my odds board as he's a lefty, but that just might not have been changed from, obviously, Nestor Cortez pitching. So Stroman's on the mound tonight. Minus 144 favorite over Baltimore. Zach Eflin takes the mound. I actually don't mind Baltimore in this spot. Even though they clinched, I think Zach Eflin's a better pitcher than Marcus Stroman, and or Nestor Cortez would have been a little bit closer. I'm willing to take a flyer on plus money. Don't love it. Don't love sides at this point, but I think I might be willing to take a flyer on that one with Baltimore. Mets and Atlanta. Minus 188 opening number at FanDuel, down to 174. But across the board, looking at minus 180s to minus 185s as the favorite towards Atlanta, and rightfully so, right? Best pitcher in the American League all season long has been Chris Sale. On the mound at home, fresh off Schwellenbach pitching well yesterday. I think Sale can pitch well today. I don't like the side necessarily because I don't want to pay that much money. Do I think the Atlanta Braves win? Absolutely, I do. But also at the same time, I don't think we get 8 runs in that game, guys. I don't think we get 8. I think this game, again, screams 3-1, 3-2, 4-3 type final. I don't think we get 8. I'll go under 7.5 between the Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Miami and Minnesota. I just can't believe Minnesota's just dropped the ball this bad. Playing this bad of baseball down the stretch, losing the first game of a 3-game set to the Miami Marlins, inexcusable. But Simeon Woods Richardson, guys, if I'm looking at my board today, I got 26 pitchers ranked over the past 60 days, minimum of 20 innings pitched. Number 25 on my list, Simeon Woods Richardson. So you're telling me right now the FanDuel Sportsbook is listing Minnesota at a minus 196 price? Yes, Minnesota's a better team than Miami. But you can't tell, like, analytically, this is a disaster. Woods Richardson's xFIP over the past 60 days, 5.07. That is danger zone time. By the way, Edward Cabrera, 4.04 xFIP. So theoretically, the better analytical pitchers on the mound for Miami. Miami won yesterday. I understand Minnesota has to win again today, but you've got to be kidding me. If you're looking for a deep flyer on a long shot, you probably want to come back to the Marlins today. FanDuel, they're getting plus 164. DraftKings plus 160. BetMGM plus 155. Westgate out in Vegas plus 168. Yeah, come on now. Minnesota can't be favored by that much. That's ridiculous. San Francisco and Arizona. Black's on the mound for San Francisco. Bad pitcher. Zach Allen loves to pitch at home. We know that, out in the desert for the Snakes. This price point opened at minus 220 at FanDuel. We're now sitting at minus 225, minus 230s across the board, and I technically agree with that. 8.5 is a total. Now, if you don't want to lay that big of a price on the money line, which I do think Arizona wins, or you don't want to risk it by taking a run line, which still doesn't give you all that great of odds, which means that Arizona as a home team has to win by 2 runs or more to cash in that ticket, you probably should just easily take this as a team total. It might be high. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if we're looking at an 8.5 favored by 2, we're probably looking at a 4.5 as a total, which means Arizona would have to get to 5 runs to win that. They should be able to get the 5 runs against Black. They got shut out yesterday. They lost 11-0. They desperately need a win. Your ace is on the mound. You're at home. I think those bats awake tonight because I was doing the numbers on the early line. Projected 9 batters in that lineup, 7 of those guys, the weighted on base percentages are above average. You get shut out last night. The law of averages means you're probably not going to get shut down again tonight. I see Mammoth out there with a 4.5. I assume he's talking about what I'm talking about here in the chat box on SportsGrid On Demand on YouTube. The people popping, sharing information. It's what we love to do. But I think Arizona gets over that 4.5. Late night is an interesting one, guys. This one is San Diego and Los Angeles is a big game. It's big time. Like San Diego's 2 games back of the Dodgers. They're going to throw Dylan Cease against Flaherty. And by the way, Flaherty hasn't been that bad. 56 and a third innings pitched over the past 60 days. He's got a 3 ERA with 3.78 xFIP number, which is very serviceable. Dylan Cease has 62 innings over the past 60 days, a 2.74 ERA and an xFIP of 3.70. You look at that number, minus 138s, minus 135s across the board. That's not that big of a favorite for the Dodgers. The total's listed at 7.5. So for my money, you might be saying to yourself, Donnie, use the same strategy you had last night. You saw that the Philadelphia Phillies won the division, celebrated, and they got bounced by the Cubs the next day. But Dylan Cease is a really good pitcher. The Phillies didn't have a great pitcher, so that mindset coming in is, we could probably afford to lose. San Diego won last night on a triple play, which then he says takes that 3-game lead down to 2 games. Now you throw Cease, who I think is the better pitcher, over Flaherty. You win this game. Now it's down to 1. Now maybe you can overtake the Los Angeles Dodgers over the final couple games. Keep in mind, though, those Los Angeles Dodgers, man, they got the Royals to end the season. That's a tough scene out there. They should be able to win that division, but San Diego maybe makes it tough tonight. I like the under in that game. Give me under 7.5. Under in that game, under in Atlanta. Neither one of those games gets to 8. That's the way it's going down. It's Donnie Rightside on Moneyline. More Hot Topics next. Keep the dial right
Get a drummer some. I already gave the summer.
Yeah, it's getting cooler. Football weather is here. Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
3-0 Steelers visit the 1-2 Colts this Sunday. Quarterback Russell Wilson remains limited. Head coach Mike Tomlin still won't say Justin Fields is the starter.
When Russ gets to an appropriate point of health and we have a decision to make, I'll make it and I'll announce it and I'll be really transparent about it.
The Bengals will dust themselves off and take on the Panthers this week. Cincinnati 0-3 on the season. They lost 38-33 Monday at home against the Commanders. Joe Burrow, 29 of 38 passing. He had 324 yards and 3 touchdowns. What needs to change? Burrow said,
the common denominator from the first 3 weeks, we've had opportunities and didn't cash in on those. So whatever we got to do to get better this week, we get better in the spots that we need to is what we're going to do.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Pros, now's your chance to save big during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Right now, save big on appliances like the GE Stainless Steel Kitchen Suite. Plus, save $40 on 5-gallon pails of Valspar Reserve, Valspar Defense, and Valspar Stain. Shop Pro Savings Days today for big savings on everything you need to get the job done right. Because Lowe's knows pros. Valid through 9/27 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first-time Nana moments.
Yeah, welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't-miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
When the weather cools off, Major League Baseball playoffs heat up. Sit tight. The World Series is coming. Keep it here for every bit of the action with strategies and information to give you the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Oh, yeah. Never too much, never too much, never too much. Fantastic stuff. That's Luther Vandross right there, I believe. Love it, Luther. Well, the NFL is going to get back underway tomorrow with the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. And boy, coming in some interesting situations. And I say this too, like the Giants have been competitive in the first couple weeks. Week number 1, not necessarily, but Minnesota looks like they might be one of the best teams in football. Week number 2, if they brought a kicker to Washington, they would have won that football game, which means they would have been 1-1. And then they go on the road last week and beat the Cleveland Browns, which, my goodness, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you were just revolting as a fan base after that loss. But competent football for the New York Giants. Not so competent football for the Dallas Cowboys, whose claim to fame was, did you see us week number 1 against a really good Cleveland football team, crush them? And then you fast forward a couple weeks and realize that Cleveland stinks as a football team. And you realize that the Saints blew your doors off in week number 2 at home. And the Ravens did the same. Don't give me the final score. Cowboys fans, don't give me the final score there in that Ravens game. That was a blowout. They destroyed the Dallas Cowboys. So now you're entering into this game on Thursday Night Football, which, in a road team, more travel. Last couple weeks on these Thursday night games have been close travel instances. This isn't the case. Dallas and New York, that's going to be a tough travel plan for Dallas. But are we looking for Dallas to rebound? Talked about Dak Prescott on the early line this morning, where it's like, look, we were unprofessional on offense, and that can't happen again. Easier said than done. You got to get in the lab, and you got to improve. And quite frankly, you just played Sunday, didn't play well. It's a quick turnaround to Thursday. Maybe get in there, work out a little bit on a Monday. Players don't really do much on a Tuesday, the day off. Wednesday is a travel day. And again, you're playing against the New York Giants. I don't think the Giants are particularly great on defense by any stretch. And I think the Dallas Cowboys offense should be able to move the ball. If you want to take anything, I guess, out of that loss to Baltimore was they did move the football late. But again, it's against a prevent defense. The other team's already shut it down. The game is essentially over. And you got back into it. You got an onside kick. You scored some points. So be it. But however, I do like, if I'm looking right now, you say, Donnie, you got to give me one bet tomorrow that I'm going to love in this game and cash in. Dak Prescott over 1.5 touchdown passes at a -125. You can get after that secondary. CeeDee Lamb also was very upset with the way he's played over the first couple weeks and has told you it's unacceptable. I got to get right. So you know what that means. We're feeding CeeDee Lamb the football. I like CeeDee Lamb at scored anytime touchdown. I'm not really a big yardage guy per se, but there's probably a good chance he gets up around 100 yards, which his player prop is in the 80s. So it's not like you're getting a discount of like 66.5 or something like that. But I think he scores. But I love Dak Prescott over 1.5 touchdown passes. Haven't really analyzed the New York Giants yet outside of, can anybody stop Malik Neighbors? He has been sensational over the first couple games here. Target monster, scoring touchdowns and really making plays, which is good to see, which helps out Daniel Jones also. But early look in that game for me, over 1.5 touchdown passes for Dak and a CeeDee Lamb touchdown sort of goes hand in hand. Like the parlay I won on Monday night, which, by the way, Jacksonville, if you just had a heartbeat in the second half, I would have had such a nice night. Turns out I won like 30 or 40 bucks as opposed to a couple $100 because I couldn't get some junk time yardage for how bad Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones were to close that game. Then Gabe Davis gets hurt, the starters come out, and I'm ready to, I don't want to relive Monday night. So we'll just chase that one out. But I do think Dallas and New York should be an entertaining game where, again, before the season, maybe we thought this would be a clear-cut blowout victory for the Dallas Cowboys, who are favored in this game. They were as high as 6 early this morning. Not seeing that right now. 5.5 at FanDuel, 5.5 at DraftKings, 5.5 for MGM, 5.5 for 365, 5.5 out there in Vegas at the Westgate here. New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. This is an interesting one, right? Falcons were riding, I want to say riding high. Knocked off the Philadelphia Eagles. The vibes were good. They didn't get a pass interference call late in their game. They ended up losing that one. And also New Orleans, who couldn't be stopped on offense. The Eagles basically stopped them cold on offense and were able to pick up the victory. It's a 1.5-point line. I don't know how much damage I'm going to do in that game with betting, but I do think it's interesting that the Atlanta Falcons are favored in their own building. And is it a mirage for the Saints on offense in those first 2 games? Or is it just Taysom Hill? Like Taysom Hill didn't play, so he can't score any points. You need the jack of all trades in there at the running back / tight end position. Pittsburgh and Indianapolis this weekend, they're favored. It's Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. They should be favored as long as Fields starts. I haven't seen anything that I liked out of Anthony Richardson except for a couple splash plays. He's been way too inconsistent. And the one thing that we can use that term and comment on, Fields has been way consistent. I'll tell you right now, I think Pittsburgh goes to 4-0. If we're looking at the betting numbers, 64% of the tickets coming in on the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I agree with. And also, the Colts opened at a 1.5-point favorite at the FanDuel Sportsbook. That now flips over to 1.5. Jacksonville and Houston, if you want to say it's the last stand, there's something to be said about Jacksonville. They blew their first game. They were horrendous in their second game at a close loss to Cleveland. They didn't even show up against the Buffalo Bills. Now we're starting to question if Trevor Lawrence can actually be the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, just a few games into a $200+ million contract that he signed as a franchise guy. Looking at this line, 4.5 to 6.5 now as a favorite towards the Texans. I think that's right. Also keep in mind, it's not as if the Texans went on the road and beat the heck out of Minnesota. It was the opposite. C.J. Stroud didn't even finish that game, which again cost me points. Bonus time football in the fourth quarter when the game is out of reach. You should be picking up yardage and touchdowns, but you need your starters and your players in to be able to do that. That's an interesting number that's bounced up. But the one thing you could say is you almost trust Houston for a bounce back. The way Jacksonville has looked, they've just been flat out atrocious. I don't know what's going to happen with that football team, but they're headed fast to 0-4. Now, you look at Cincinnati's 0-3 and say, their defense stinks, but it's still Joe Burrow. It's still Jamar Chase. It's still T. Higgins getting healthy. They might be able to work their way out of it. I don't get those same vibes from Jacksonville from an 0-3 start to the season. I don't know if they're going to be able to get over it. I don't think that's the case. Maybe the game of the week in the 1 o'clock hour, right? Minnesota and Green Bay. Awesome. We don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be here for the Green Bay Packers. But based on practice reports from last week, we knew Jordan Love was getting close to starting Sunday against Tennessee. I told you that entire week, though. There was no way he was starting that game at Tennessee. Don't buy into it. That's coaches speak. But he's moving around much better, and the practice reports that'll start to come out here on Wednesday will let us know who's taking the majority of those reps. Shout out Matt LaFleur. Shout out Malik Willis. What an unbelievable job through 2 weeks holding down the fort. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what a backup quarterback helps you do. That line, -2.5 for Green Bay at home. 80% of the tickets lining up on Minnesota. I'm telling you right now, Jordan Love starts that game, they're going to beat the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. They're beating the Purple People Eaters, people. One more segment to go right here on Moneyline, the best hour of your day. Make sure you stay tuned right here, SiriusXM Channel 159.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall. The World Series is on its way. And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi. Then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Moneyline.
Titans would be 3-0 if Will Levis just stopped those turnovers. It's like, and again, there will be times to bet Tennessee, but Will Levis is a problem, Donnie. He is one of the worst quarterbacks in football as long as Will Levis protects the ball. It's like, it's like if you bet the Browns, you're like, man, if Watson gets back to form, this team's incredible. It's not going to happen.
Catch Moneyline with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network.
No way football is played in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
All right, talking some NFL spreads for this weekend's action. Went over some Major League Baseball today, some hot topics. Tomorrow, the boys will be in studio. Pro Football Today, all the way through, and a couple different changes to that show, which I think you guys are going to love. So in-game live, Pro Football Today edition. You got to be tuned in tomorrow night. Joe Lisi, by the way, turned a $100 wager into just over $5,000 on Monday night, as you saw us cheering that on that doubleheader. By the way, next Monday, we also have a doubleheader in the building as well. So sort of like that, 2 games going on at once. Both of those games had scoring. It was a lot of fun to watch it through. I won a few dollars, but Joe Zertley was the big winner of the night, and you certainly see those retweets that going around the minute that Terry McLaurin made that unbelievable touchdown catch in the back of the end zone late in the fourth quarter to put that game away for the Washington Commanders. Hit a nice ticket for him. We keep moving forward to some of that action. The question comes up, Cincinnati and Carolina. What are we getting here? 7.5-point look-ahead line for Cincinnati is now down to 4.5 because we believe that Carolina actually has an offense now. Well, this is a referendum on Cincinnati. If they go on the road and lose to Carolina, also sometimes, again, it's when you play these teams. If Cincinnati was playing this weekend where maybe coming off the bye, they were still going to go with Bryce Young, you'd love that for Cincinnati. But boy, Carolina showed life last week against an okay football team in the Raiders. But how much of that was life and how much was that with fool's gold? The one thing I do like in that game is I think Cincinnati will continue to score. Burrow over 1.5 touchdown passes. Jamar Chase will probably get in the end zone. And T. Higgins getting his feet wet this past week, probably going to be much, much better next weekend as long as he didn't come out of that game any worse for the wear, and I don't think he did. Rams and the Chicago Bears, 2.5-point number. Hate this game all the way around, but if I had to bet this, 75% of the tickets are coming in on the Rams. I actually think the Bears pick up their second win of the season in this game. I do. We'll see if Keenan Allen plays, but I still can't trust the Rams with all of those injuries. Even though you have a young quarterback in Caleb Williams, I think they'll be able to handle their business, and for my money, 25% of the bets, once again, coming in for Chicago is an interesting look overall. Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. I don't know why the Eagles are favored. I don't. Donnie, you're hating on your team. You saw them go down to New Orleans last week as 2.5-point underdogs and went outright against maybe the hottest team in the NFL. I get it. But let's be honest with ourselves. Once we see the practice reports come out today, Mekhi Becton, don't know if he's playing. Starting right guard. Lane Johnson, concussion. He's not going to play this weekend. I just can't see that happening. So your starting right side of your line is out. Hey, the Eagles have a high-octane offense. Devontae Smith is awesome. He's got a concussion. Got a bye week coming up. I doubt he plays this week. A.J. Brown, hamstring injury. Doubt he plays this week. So you're down your entire right-hand side of the line and down both wide receivers and going on the road against a team that got its tail kicked last week by the Denver Broncos. You know me. I picked against the Eagles last week and they lost. I'm going to pick against the Eagles again this weekend with Tampa Bay getting points at home on the road just because I don't think the Eagles are going to be healthy enough to be competitive in this game. Yes, they won, but also that last drive, like, thank God for Dallas Goedert. Thank God for a pick play that worked in their favor. But it's just crazy how they score, like, long-distance calls from Dallas Goedert on a pick play and just Saquon Barkley being Saquon Barkley. I guess you got to give Saquon another 30 to 40 carries in this game for them to try to hold on and rest him up over the bye week before they come back, which I believe they take on, I want to say, the Cleveland Browns after that. Washington and Arizona. What a fun game, guys. Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, 3.5-point spread for Arizona. Awesome win for Washington. They come back down to earth, but I told you before this season began, the Arizona Cardinals are a team you want to make sure you have bets in on a week-to-week basis. They're going to score points. They're going to give up points. And I think that's going to happen there. We'll see if Jaden Daniels can build off an absolutely wonderful performance on Monday Night Football in going on the road beating the Bengals. He was almost completely flawless in that game. 5 rushing touchdowns on the season, threw a couple touchdown passes in that game. He's been great to watch it play out. New England and San Francisco, 10-point spread for San Francisco. They're going to be angry. Juwan Bentley just got placed on the IL, the team captain for the IR, I should say, the team captain for the New England Patriots. Doesn't look good for them. San Francisco's going to be hot and bothered in that game, but also who's playing for them? Deebo Samuel? Probably not. Juwan Jennings looks like he's reincarnated Jerry Rice after last week. But a lot of banged-up players also on San Francisco in that one. Cleveland and Las Vegas, it's a 1-point line. Vegas is favored. That's a terrible football game. The Chargers, we don't know is going to be a quarterback, anticipating it's going to be Justin Herbert again, even after the week he had to leave early against the Pittsburgh Steelers with that high ankle sprain. But a monster favorite here by Kansas City at 8.5 at most outlets right now, up from 4.5. Sunday Night Football is going to be awesome. Awesome. Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, MVP leader tied with Mahomes. Josh Allen goes up against Lamar Jackson, who saved their season with a victory against Dallas last week, a 2.5-point favorite. How about that for Baltimore, not Buffalo, and a total of 46.5. Awesome times ahead Thanks for tuning in to this hour of Moneyline. Get you caught up on all the hot topics. Much more on the Sports Grid Network coming forward, so make sure you stay tuned. For JP behind the wheels of steel, Donnie Wright's out on the solo mission. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Fall is here.